Hey guys, I'm going to be showing you how to create something super cool on Roblox Studio using object-oriented programming. So I'll show you what it does first. So you click this blue box and it creates a new object up here, which you can actually move around the screen using these arrow keys. And every time you click this button, it will create a new object. So I'm just saying I'd stick around for this video because I'm also going to be showcasing in a few days another tutorial on how to make mobs and AI using object-oriented programming also. So as you can see, I have a damage guy, which will damage you, and a heal guy, which will actually heal you. But that's going to be for another video. So stick around and I'll show you how to make moving parts. Hey guys, so let's get this started right away. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is actually what is object-oriented programming. So normally when you code, use functions and logic to do other things like moving an object around the screen or an item, instance as you should call it. So all these items are instances, so they are physical objects within the game. But an object rather is like, think of it like a piece of data that we'll be using. And I'm going to show you exactly what it is very soon and how we can use these to manipulate items. And we can use them to our advantage to make our lives easier when we're programming. So the first thing that we're actually going to do is we're going to add a module script to our game. So this module script, we use module scripts to represent objects in Roblox Studio kind of, or how we create the objects. So we're going to add this module script, and as you can see, it just starts off with an empty table and return module. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to rename this to controller. So local controller equals an empty table. Again, this does nothing right now. It's like useless. So why am I naming this controller? Well, it's totally up to you how you want to name it. But for what I'm doing, as you saw in the intro, I'm controlling a moving part. So therefore I'm going to name it controller. So I'm going to also rename the module script to controller, just to represent, just have it, synonymous with everything. So first thing we want to do is actually be able to create this object. So how I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to be using a function to create this. So what I could do is actually just type in function controller.new. So we could call this our constructor variable because or constructor function, because we are going to be constructing a new object. So we need to put some code in here to make this actually do something or become more useful. So first thing that I'm actually going to type in is local, and then I'm just going to have a variable name, self representing this table. And again, I'm just setting self equal to an empty table for now. You'll see what this does all in a second. And I'm going to create a moving part because what I'm going to do is whenever we call this function, it's going to add that blue box or our red box onto our screen like it was in the intro. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a part that we will use to manipulate on the screen. So local move part equals script. Oh wait, first we want to actually create this moving part. We don't have it added yet. So I'm going to create a text button right here. So instead of what I'm going to do actually is just so I can actually see what the text button looks like, I'm going to add a screen GUI underneath the starter GUI, and I'm going to drag this text button here. So now we can actually see it on our screen. So I just want to be able to see what this object looks like, so then I can make it look like what I want it to look like, this instance. So I'm going to make the background color to be light blue. It doesn't really actually, I'll make it red. It doesn't matter what you make it. And I'm just going to make it so the text, it doesn't say anything. We don't need it to say anything. And I'm going to add a UI corner just to make the corners rounded because, why not? It looks nice. So there we go. We got the text button, and I'm going to name this move. So now what we can actually do is just drag this right back under the controller module so we can access it easily later on. So what I'm going to do is just type in script.move. So what I'm doing is just referencing the move button down here. Nothing too complicated. And I'm just going to actually clone this so we don't take the actual copy. We need to be able to clone it multiple times. And I'm going to set this move part. I'll set the position first. So I'm going to set the move part position to the top left corner of the screen. So if you know what UDIM2s are, they're kind of just how we position labels and buttons in a two-dimensional space, which is the screen. So the X is kind of you could do it by offset or just like a scale value, but we're going to be just using a normal scale value because that's easier instead of offsetting every time. So whenever we do this, like udim2.new000, it's going to create a button, and that button is going to be placed at the top corner of our screen. So let me show you where that is. This is 0000. So that's where it's going to be positioned on the screen. And we actually want to, right now, it's not being parented to anything. So like I just showed you, I kind of had to move this text label to the screen GUI. So I need to be able to do that through another script. So what I'm going to do is have a parent passed through. So not label parent, my bad. So now all I have to do is type in movepart.parent equals parent. So now this object will be parented to the screen GUI, which we will type in later. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to go over to the let's add this into our screen GUI. So if you remember in the intro, I had a bunch of little buttons here that kind of represented like a controller almost. We're going to do something like that. So I'm going to add a UI corner, and I'm going to delete the text once again because we do not need the text. And let's make this a greenish color just to represent the movement, I guess. It doesn't matter what you color this. So background colors should be up here. Background color 3, green. So we're going to have this move the object up. So I'm just going to name this up. We're going to have another one that will move the object down. So we'll name this one down. We're going to have another one that moves it right. And finally, we're going to have one that moves it left. Oops, there we go. Left. There's also one more we actually do want to add. We want to add one in the middle here that will actually create the new object. We'll make that one blue. So we're going to make it so whenever we click on this object in the middle, it's going to create a new button in the top right, a new text label that we can move using these buttons. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to help you guys visualize this. So I click this blue button, and then what it's going to do is I'm going to have it so it creates a new object, and that new object is going to create a new instance of the move button that we just made, and it's going to position it up in the top left corner of the screen. Okay, so let's actually type the code up for this. Let me rename this one to new, and I'm actually going to create a local script. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to reference all of the things we need. We're going to define all these variables quick. So the screen GUI is a parent of the script, which is right here. So here's the script, here's the parent. We need that. We're going to get the up arrow. Again, up is just right here. So what we're going to do is say script.parent.up, but we have screen GUI right here already defined. So we could just say screen GUI dot, oops, I actually have to type up, screen GUI dot up. And as you can see, what it's doing is it's just going right here and accessing up. And I'm going to do the same exact thing for down, right, and left. Screen GUI dot down local right equals screen GUI dot right. Local left equals screen GUI dot left. So these are all text buttons, so they all have an action they can perform. So we can detect whenever someone clicks on those buttons, which we're going to use to manipulate the object. And we also want to get the new one, the one that will create the object every time it's clicked. So let's start off with using the new button. So this button right here we're going to be using. So new.mouse button 1 down. So whenever the player clicks, this is what's going to run. And what I actually need to do first is I actually need to require this module. So I'm going to create a new variable called controller. And actually, sorry, I put this in server script service by accident. Let's put controller into replicated storage so anyone can access it, because you cannot access a server script service from a local script. So what I'm going to do is say local controller equals game.replicatedStorage.controller. So now I'm referencing this, but we can't actually access any of the functions inside of this until we use the require keyword. So what require does is it will just give you access to the functions within this file in the table. So in particular, it will just return the controller, which is this table. All right, so now what we're going to do is type in local, let's just name this object for now, equals controller.new. So as you can see, when I typed in a dot, it actually recognized the .new right here. So now we can type in .new. And again, remember what we typed in as an argument? We typed in parent. So we need to know what the parent is, and well, that's pretty easy. We already know the parent is going to be the screen GUI, so let's just type that in. So controller.new and the parent. So let's just see what happens first. Before I move on, let's see what happens when I play the game. So I click play. Let's make sure everything works. Alrighty, so we're in and we click the blue button and an object is created in the top left corner. It does exactly what we wanted to do so far. Perfect. So now we're going to move on and we're going to make it so we can move this object. So as it stands right now, we can't actually do that much with this part just in the new function. So we're going to want to create a bunch of little functions to help manipulate this object. So before we can do that, we're going to actually have to add more properties and more indexes to this table right here. So to do that, we're going to type in self.label equals move part. So what we're doing is we're just creating a new index called label, and we're setting that equal to move part, so we can access this whenever we want. Perfect. So now we're going to do return, and we're going to want to return this self table. Before we move on, there's actually one more thing we have to do. So for outside functions to actually work, we're going to have to do controller.__index equals controller. So this is called a meta method. I'm probably not going to get into too much detail about it right now, maybe in a future tutorial, but just know we need to use these meta methods to actually index the functions instead of just the attributes of a table. So I'm going to do set meta table, and then we'll have self, controller. So set meta table, that's so we can actually use these meta methods. We'll talk about these in maybe a future tutorial. So now we're allowed to actually create more functions. So what I can do is type in function controller move up, and we're going to have an amount it moves up. So what we're going to make it do or what we're gonna have the function do is make it so we can move the object up, just up, that's all. So we're gonna type in the self keyword. So this is interesting, right? If we didn't have this colon here, then we wouldn't be able to type in self. So for example, if I use a dot here, we would not be able to access the self method. We would have to have another argument passing through like a variable that would refer to the self method. So that's why the colon is very convenient. So we can use that self method and we could call that function from an object directly. So we're gonna type in self dot label. So we're accessing the label part of the table, or the label, which is the move part, dot position equals. Actually, we're going to type in plus equals because we're going to be moving it up. udim2 dot new 0, 0, 0, amount. So this will move it up 50, I guess like pixels or whatever, studs. I'm not sure what it measures with, but it's going to move it up by 50. And then we're going to have it return self.position. We don't need this. We could use this if we wanted to print out the position afterwards, but it doesn't really matter. And oops, we're going to do that for everything else. So we'll just copy and paste this function 3 times. So we're going to have one for moving down, for moving right, and finally for moving left. So there we go. What we can do now is just change these. So when we're moving down, we're going to be subtracting from this current value. And to move right, we're going to be putting this into the second argument. And to move left, we're going to be subtracting the second argument. And keep in mind, guys, when I type in minus equals, so this is what I mean, minus equals, what this is basically doing is saying self.label.position equals self.label.position minus udim2 dot new 0, amount, 0, 0. So I'm just subtracting this udim2 off of the current position of the label. That's what it means. So let's test this, right? So we want to be able to use these methods. So we're going to do this by going back to the local script, and we're going to utilize these other buttons. So we'll type in up mouse button 1 down, connect function. Oops. I keep misspelling function. What's going on? Okay, there we go. So now what we want to do is use this object in here, and we're going to move that up. But we don't have access to this object right now. All we have access to are the variables up here. But how can we get to this? We can just create a table of these objects, just like this. Local objects equals an empty table. And whenever we click this new button, we can just do objects, and then we can get the size of this table. So number of objects. So it will return, for this, it will return a 0 because it's empty right now. And we're going to add 1 to this to add it 1 spot forward so it doesn't keep replacing the current value. Equals object. So there we go. Now we have a new entry into our table. So now we're allowed to actually access the values in this table. So we have access to all the objects. So what I'm going to do to make it so it moves all the objects, I'm just going to loop through it, just like you would any table. For I, item in pairs, objects, do, and then, actually, sorry, each one of these are an object. So every value is one of these objects. So I'm going to do object, move up, and the amount we want, let's just make an amount up here. Let's define a number. Amount, let's just make it 50. That's a good number. And then amount, perfect. So all we have to do now, copy and paste this, and just change the name. So up, down, left, and right. And then we're going to have one here, move left. Sorry, this one's down. What am I typing? Move down, move left, and finally move right. So this is what we're going to do whenever we click on a button. It's going to move the object by that amount. And again, whenever I type in move up like this, it's going into the controller script. It's accessing this function right here. And then it's going to reference the label, which we have right here. That's what we said when we returned this meta method. And we're just going to add the amount onto that position. And guys, I urge you, if you don't know how functions work, just like the basic idea of them, or for loops or tables, it's very important to know that stuff for this video. I probably should have said that at the beginning, but it's very important to know how tables work, how functions work, all that stuff. So if you don't have that knowledge and need to review a bit, that's okay. You could always just come back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test once again. Let's see if it works. I might have missed something, but it should work. No errors at the moment. So I'll click here. We got the object. Okay, we do have an error. So it said UDIM2 expected. That is my bad. These all should be UDIM2. So yeah, go ahead and change those all to UDIM2 instead of just UDIM. Let's try one more time. There we go. Oh, down. Look at that, down's going up. That's not what we want. Instead of down going down, it's going up. So really all we have to do to fix that is go back into this script and we'll just say plus equals and minus equals. I forgot that down is actually like, for example, if I just get a text label real quick, down will actually just position, here we are. Down actually goes up. If you look at my position right here, down's all, it's actually going up. So that's what we wanted to do. So here we go. This should work. It should be fully complete. So I'm going to create a new instance of a button, just like that. I'll move it a bit, create another one, keep moving it, and look at that, we got a bunch of moving objects. And you can use this for so many things, it's ridiculous. Like, with object-oriented programming, it simplifies so much. And once again, like I said, I'm going to be making another tutorial soon on how to make mobs into AI with object-oriented programming. So definitely stick around for that. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the video. And if you have anything to say, comment. You could always just drop it down in the description. Drop a comment down below. That's perfectly fine. And if you liked the video, of course you could leave a like too. That would help a ton. So thank you guys. Have a great day and have a great night.